Well, it'd be great to see more awareness about sustainability in general, I think. It'd be really good to see some focus more on like the product side of things, sort of pushing sustainable consumer goods as well as wider policy. I think that'd be really important.
What I would really like to see is more encouragement to use electric vehicles. There's not enough encouragement from the government. There was more grants, but they're saying that by 2030 they want to remove all petrol and diesel vehicles. Then surely they need to be more encouragement, because electric vehicles, let's be honest, are expensive for the average person. So by either subsidising them or giving better grants, then more people will take that up. I mean, that's the main sort of gripe that people are going to need in this country is sustainable transport. Because you look at all the trucks and the diesel, they put pollution, and that actually saves a lot, responsible for 18%.
I'd like to see every nation making a commitment to addressing climate change. The Chinese, the Americans, and the UK. And really practical actions, putting taxes on companies that don't have sustainable policies, and having tax breaks for companies that do make sustainable products.
The main changes I'd like to see coming from COP26 is to do with our food. So banning chemicals on the food that we eat. Because I think by cleaning up the farms and our food industry, we'll clean up our country as well, and the world.
I would like to see a concrete actions from government starting to support more small businesses, because there are a lot of small, middle businesses that they really want to take action, they want to do something meaningful, but the financial contributions, the financial support is always very minimal, and at the end of the day, it's always the big petrol companies that seem to rule the world. So it would be great to start seeing a change from a government point of view.
Oh, please don't get me started. I'm not the person to answer this question. There are far more qualified people to answer this question. My role in life is to galvanize people who don't give a shit about sustainability, not talk about the nuances that people far more qualified than myself are giving their lives to, like Jarvis, for example. COP26 talks to a group of people who are highly engaged in sustainability. There is more people who just care about watching football on the weekend and just care about watching The Only Way is Essex, or insert other current popular culture thing. My role, or what I believe should happen, is people should be more relatable in engaging people around sustainability as a topic, okay? So the idea of creating content for people, rather than talk down to them, talk up to them. I think COP26 needs to engage the mainstream by having a bit of crossover appeal, right? Being a little bit self-deprecating. At the moment, it seems that the only messaging coming out of the crew who are really focused on COP26 is the world is going to end, we need to sharpen up. Which is one core pillar that we can use as a hook to hook people in. But you could also say, sustainability, that could be fun, let's all get on board. And that's what we're trying to do.
At COP26, I'd love to see the building in of curriculum for students from year 7 upwards to then participate in a sustainable and conservation experience. So this is outside of the school and in an environment that's a little bit alien to them, but understanding sustainable principles, collaboration, leaning into failure and understanding conservation strategies by appreciating animal behaviour. I think COP26 doesn't use or doesn't look at mental health, and I think that is such a missed element in terms of the productivity and the advertisement that it gains. And I think all the involvement and the power of the people that are involved in COP26 can so easily augment what they're doing to encapsulate mental health into everyday life. It is such an important factor in terms of what we need especially for our children, the next generation, and for a healthy ecosystem. If you're not healthy minded, the ecosystem isn't healthy, because we need people to think holistically, not narrow-mindedly.
So from COP26, I'd love to see more action. There's a lot of really great conversations taking place, but how are we actually applying that? And for us specifically, how we're applying that with younger generations, giving them that agency and that empowerment to then go forward and actually create further change themselves.
I would hope that a lot of the governments that are claiming to do things towards like a green future already are acknowledging that fossil fuels are a big issue and they're still being funded by them and they're still funding them. So I would really hope that that kind of that conversation will be platformed and that we will also then see a change afterwards. I just hope that it won't be like past summits where there was a lot of talk and nothing much happened. So yeah, to change this year.
Really, I'd like to see a greater accord, a greater agreement, a greater accord for all the nations who are there and who are talking about this, not to dodge the bullet. You can't dodge the bullet anymore. We have to pay attention, and everybody has to pay attention. And the time has come where we need some leaders to stand up and go, we're not going to do business with you unless you do that. We're not going to buy your gas unless you improve your environmental stance.
I guess focusing on like climate change, polluted oceans and air quality, that would be really good.
Well, one is green energy, renewable energy. The second would be organic food, or certainly non-pesticide food, because it's not just about reducing emissions, it's also about, to do that, is like reducing pesticide use, because pesticides, but the main manufacture of them, creates more carbon. 3 would be rationing flying. Everybody has a certain amount of miles, and then that's it. You can't use more than that. And that includes royalty, politicians, a lot. We've all got the same.
The top 3 things I'd like to see happening at COP26 are awareness of sustainability, action at a government level, and making it easier for real people to take action.
Reforestation is major. Chemicals on our fields and on our farms, ban those, and just generally cleaning up the world, and of course plastic. We need to address plastic and we need to change that.
3 main areas I love COP26 to address would be first and foremost biodiversity, conservation and mental health. Those are 3 main areas I'd like them to integrate in terms of, starting with the last one, mental health being integrated through fractal lines, the nature fix, understanding what it's like to be submersed within nature, conservation, understanding how to work together collaboratively to save a habitat and then a species, whether that's a rhino or a rhino beetle, an antlion or a lion, and understanding the requirements that's needed for that. And then biodiversity. If we don't know what's there in the first place, how on earth can we work to conserve it?
For us, getting sustainability in the education curriculum and making that a really fundamental part of education, I guess there's elements of investments, further investment within sustainable businesses and increasing that aspect of it, and simply just stop cutting down trees. And there's a lot of reforestation programs that are very short-lived, but the benefit of that needs to be over a certain period of time. So if we stop that, and then we can start to reinvest in other areas as well.
I would like to see governments to defund from fossil fuels. I would also like to see companies not being able to greenwash anymore so easily. And I would like to see the conversation around sustainability to be fun and for people to like to get involved and for it not to be such a strange topic that you don't really know how to get involved in.
I'd like to see further impetus towards green hydrogen, because I think that's the future for not cars, but all heavy transport. So maritime, big polluters, all those ships out on the sea, they need to be driven with hydrogen. It's easy. JCB's diggers, they need to be driven with hydrogen. Cars, different matter, electric, that's fine. So I'd like to see a bit more impetus towards green hydrogen rather than grey or blue hydrogen, which is not quite as sound, let's say. So I'd also like to see something talked about with regard to deforestation, because I still think that there is a lot of deforestation going on behind the scenes, which is sponsored by the big banks. They finance these companies to cut down half the rainforest, and they don't really, they talk a good talk, but if you look behind the figures in people's financial accounts, you find that it's people like HSBC behind those sort of.
Well, we're negative actually. Incognito is one of the few carbon negative companies in the world. There's only a handful or 10 in this country. But I'm on the fence, because since we started, we've been doing every little thing. We don't make any decision without thinking of the impact on the environment. I mean, it's easier when you're starting a company. It's much harder when you've got a big thing like, say, Unilever. It's much harder for them, to do that. But what we're doing is, or what we've done, is everything that we do reduces like carbon emissions, and we actually capture more carbon than we emit. So I'm on the fence though with your question as to whether they will, because this is the critical time.
I think it's definitely better, and all the COVID pandemic definitely helped, at least at the consumer level, at the people level. We are all more aware of the damages of pollution, waste. So definitely this pandemic, if anything, helped us to realize that we reached the limits and we really start to take action. But the biggest moves have to come from the governments, from the big institutions, from the lobbies, from those institutions that really have the power to do something.
Yeah, I think we're at a tipping point. I think it's at that point where you've got businesses, you've got government, you've got consumers all coming together, and it's just reached that point now where everyone wants that change. I think before there was maybe certain small groups of consumers that wanted it, there was certain areas of government that were pushing it more than others, but I think it's really got to that kind of collective point now, and hopefully that tipping point where most people can see that something needs to change. So hopefully now there'll be more outcomes than there have been before. Yeah, I mean, we've been working in it for kind of nearly 10 years, and when we started, no one was really that interested. Oh, we cover a topic here, there's a little bit in geography, there's a little bit in biology, where people are starting to understand that whole systems approach. They're realising that it needs to be everyone that's on board. It needs to be teaching staff, non-teaching staff, and the impact of schools are there. They're such an important, integral part of the community. So you get the students on board, you end up getting the students teaching the family, and then the outcome that can have and that domino effect is fundamental. So for us, there's been a massive shift, and I think in the last couple of years, sustainability and mental health have been the two sort of biggest keywords, and they really sync for us, because you get people outside, you get them understanding and enjoying the ecosystem they're in, you get them loving that environment, they want to become kind of ambassadors to protect it, so you get those pro-environmental behaviours, so it just has that knock-on effect and impact.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, definitely. Like, I went vegetarian 5 years ago, and back then you struggle to find a vegetarian meal somewhere, and now the conversation around these things has changed a lot. And yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I think people want to change, people want to invest in companies that make changes, that are sustainable, that are ethical. So yeah, now we just need to find a way to bring that all together and make tangible change in the future.
I think that there is such a lot of PR, such a lot of talk about the environment. It's just suddenly bubbled to the surface in a way I don't think it has really before. I mean, there's been a lot of people talking about it, a lot of the public talking about it, but actually politicians getting hold of it and knowing that they actually have to now do something.